What if I told you that Law and Doflamingo weren't just enemies? They were products of the same experiment. Because Dressrosa wasn't just a kingdom, it was a crime scene, a celestial dragon escape route, a black market headquarters, and a testing ground for weapons, slavery, and human trafficking. And Law didn't just fight Doflamingo because of Corazon. He fought him because Doflamingo knew something so dangerous, the world government would rather burn the world than let it leak. And today, we're breaking down the truth. Law, Doflamingo, Corazon, Dressrosa, the D, and the conspiracy that connects them all. Because the celestial dragons weren't just watching this war, they were building it. Most One Piece villains want power, but the celestial dragons, they were born with it. They don't conquer nations, they purchase them. They don't fight wars, they finance them. And if that sounds familiar, it's because that's how real empires operate. The world government isn't a government in the traditional sense. It's a monopoly, a system designed to control history, information, bloodlines, and most importantly, who gets to be human. And no character proves that more than Doflamingo. Because Doflamingo is what happens when a celestial dragon falls to Earth and realizes the world doesn't worship you anymore. Doflamingo is introduced as a warlord, but that label is too small. Doflamingo wasn't a pirate who became powerful. He was a royal who already knew the world's true structure, a formal celestial dragon, a man who once lived in Mary Geoise and saw things normal people were never meant to see. And when his father gave up their title, the world punished them for it. They were hunted, tortured, dragged through the streets. But here's what's important. Doflamingo didn't just become evil because of trauma. He became evil because he realized something terrifying. Even after losing his title, he still had access to forbidden information. Information so valuable that it made him untouchable. That's why he could walk in the Marine headquarters like he owned the building. That's why CP0 negotiated with him. And that's why the world government kept him alive. Because Doflamingo wasn't just a criminal, he was a living blackmail file. Now let's talk about Dressrosa. To most fans, Dressrosa is a colorful arc. But if you zoom out, Dressrosa is horrifying. It's a kingdom built on memory manipulation, slavery, underground weapons trade, and human trafficking. And it wasn't random. Doflamingo didn't pick Dressrosa because it was pretty. He picked Dressrosa because it was strategically perfect. It sat on the trade route, it had royal legitimacy, and it was close enough to the world government to stay protected, but far enough away to operate in the shadows. Dressrosa was a front, a celestial dragon farm, a place where the elite could run black market operations while pretending the world was peaceful. And that's where the story gets even darker, because the black market wasn't the main business. The main business was people. The celestial dragons don't value gold, they value blood, lineage, ownership, slaves, and secrets. That's why the world government controls the narrative of history. Because if people ever learned the truth, the celestial dragons wouldn't be seen as gods. They'd be seen as what they really are, descendants of thieves who stole the world. Doflamingo understood this perfectly. He wasn't trying to overthrow the world government. He was trying to exploit it because he knew how the system works. And the system works on one thing, fear. Now we get to Law, because Law's story doesn't begin with Doflamingo. It begins with something far more suspicious. Flevance, the White City, a country discovered because of amber-lead disease. But if you actually look at what happened, it doesn't feel like a tragedy. It feels like a cover-up. Flevance was rich, too rich. The world wanted its resources. And when the people became inconvenient, they were erased, not conquered, not negotiated with, erased. And the world government didn't save them. They quarantined them. They labeled them infected. Then they let them die. And the world watched. That's not a disease story. That's political execution. Then Law survives and meets Corazon. And Corazon gives him a name that changes everything. D. Trafalgar D. Water Law. And Corazon doesn't treat that like a coincidence. He treats it like a prophecy. Because Corazon knows something about the celestial dragons that most people don't. They don't fear pirates. They fear the will of D. They fear the bloodline that has opposed them since the Void Century. So what if Law's entire existence is tied to something bigger? What if Flevance wasn't destroyed because of disease, but because the government suspected the D existed there, or worse, because they suspected something was hidden there, a poneglyph, a relic, a secret that could expose Mary Geoise? Because celestial dragons don't destroy cities for nothing. They destroy them when something threatens their legitimacy. And Law becomes the perfect weapon against Doflamingo. Because Law is the opposite of Doflamingo. Doflamingo is a fallen god who believes he deserves everything. Law is a broken survivor who believes the world deserves truth, and that makes him dangerous. Corazon's role is often seen as emotional, but it's also political, because Corazon wasn't just a good man, he was a Marine, a double agent, a man infiltrating a celestial dragon descendant, which means the Marines weren't just monitoring Doflamingo, they were terrified of him. Because Doflamingo wasn't just selling weapons, he was selling influence. He was connected to the underworld, to Kaido, to CP0, to Mary Geoise, and Corazon's mission wasn't to save Dressrosa, it was to stop Doflamingo from revealing the secret he had, because Doflamingo knew something called the National Treasure of Mary Geoise. That line changes everything, because what kind of treasure could shake the world? Not gold, not weapons, something worse. Something that would invalidate the entire system. Something that proves celestial dragons aren't gods. That's why Doflamingo could blackmail them, and that's why they let him walk free for years. Because if Doflamingo talks, the world burns. Dressrosa wasn't a side arc, it was a preview, because Dressrosa showed us the true One Piece world, a fake paradise built on slavery, a smiling kingdom built on erased memories, a nation where people vanished, and nobody ever remembers they existed. Sound familiar? That's the Void Century. That's what the world government did to the entire planet. Dressrosa is the micro version of the One Piece world. And Doflamingo is the perfect villain because he doesn't pretend to be good. He's honest about the system. He tells you the truth. Justice is whoever wins. History belongs to the powerful and the weak are disposable. That isn't pirate ideology. That's celestial dragon ideology. So when Law fought Doflamingo, it wasn't just revenge for Corazon. It was the will of D colliding with the celestial dragon's legacy. It was a survivor fighting the system. A man who lost everything to corruption versus a man who is corruption given flesh. Doflamingo wasn't just trying to rule Dressrosa. He was trying to reclaim the world. Because deep down, he believed the world belonged to him. And Law was proof that even when the world erases you, you still can come back as a threat. And here's the scariest part. Doflamingo is still alive. He's laughing in prison because he knows something is coming. He knows celestial dragons will fall. He knows the truth is surfacing. And when the final war begins, Doflamingo may not be the enemy. He may be the narrator. Because the man who once blackmailed the gods is still holding their secrets. And the moment he speaks, the world will never be the same. So here's the real question. Was Dressrosa just a kingdom Doflamingo stole? Or was it a celestial dragon operation disguised as a pirate arc? And if Doflamingo really knows the national treasure of Mary Geoise, what do you think it is? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you want more deep One Piece breakdowns that connect lore, history, and hidden conspiracies, make sure to subscribe because the final saga isn't about pirates anymore. It's about exposing the gods.